Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Meltdown Abroad.
In this week's episode, we unpack the challenges associated with moving to a new country when you don't have your friends or your village yet.
Stay tuned.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
What was it like moving here in terms of friends? You had your partner here and he had his own group of friends, but what was it like for you trying to figure that out and find your place?
So yeah, it's a little tricky because yes, I've met his friends before,
Okay.
but they weren't necessarily my people, and a lot of them English wasn't their first language. It might have been their second or third language.
Yeah.
So there was the added pressure of I didn't know German, still don't, and their English is not that great. So they were it didn't feel like community for me, right? Which as much as I knew them, it just didn't feel like I could go to them for things.
Yeah.
So I think I heavily relied on him for a little while, but I would often ask him to ask his friends if I needed to find something.
Okay.
So like helping me to navigate around the city, knowing that he probably wouldn't know a lot of the things, like for girls especially. I know when I first moved here, hair products was a huge deal for me, and my curly, coily hair. And so I needed to just get a little bit of insight into where can I find things for Black women.
Well, and there's so many different, like I didn't know the word for conditioner and I also just couldn't find it lots of places.
Yeah.
Like all sorts of things are harder to find.
Yeah. So in that way, like I would often just say, hey, do you mind asking if like so-and-so if they've had this before, or if I wanted like a certain food product? Because my background is Jamaican, or I am Jamaican. So moving here, I didn't know where to find anything Jamaican related if I wanted to cook. So I'd ask him to ask his friends because I knew he wouldn't know. So in that sense, I didn't really feel like I had friendships. But I knew that I could access things through his friends.
You had resources.
I had resources.
Yeah. Okay.
How about you?
Okay. Yeah, I think it was complicated. I think the first year I was mainly living my old life here. But then afterwards, we started building out some friendships little by little, and some with the kids and some through work and that kind of thing. We did rely heavily on each other too.
Yeah.
And we did get closer. Like all of us as a family got closer. The kids got closer, everyone. And that was a really neat outcome. Though there was one thing that I really remember missing. And honestly, I've been missing it for a while, though it's just beginning to come back, which is this concept of having your friends around, your friends with kids around, and their parenting and your parenting all in the same space. So the kids are playing, you are talking, and your comment about resources comes up a lot in that context because you're having a coffee, and while the kids are playing, someone brings up an indoor playground that you've never heard of or been to with your kids, or a coffee shop that they love, or a place where you can get clothing that's sort of like the Gap in terms of quality, or where you just kind of like lining things up of like, okay, I can do this kind of activity. This is a resource that's available. And I didn't have to Google it. I didn't have to look it up. It was just like a really natural part of the flow.
Yeah.
And even things would come up like watching someone respond to their kid in a way that you really loved, or watching them play a game with them in a way that you really love, where you're like, oh, my son or daughter would love that too. And so you're picking up parenting strategies, ways of having conversations, resources in town, products and things. And all of those things are happening just by kind of coexisting.
Yeah.
And I missed that a lot. And I've really just begun to have it again now.
The village. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
And I think for me, this is the first time I've lived in a location where I had a sense of a village, because everywhere else I've lived by myself.
Yeah.
And so I remember that feeling of just not really feeling settled, because you just didn't know what you can access. It just didn't feel like home. It just didn't stick because you were so unfamiliar.
Yeah.
And you just didn't know where to find things. In fact, So I had this dream that when I graduated, I would live in LA.
Okay.
And that got me through my master's. I was like, when I finish, I'm going to move to St. Monica and live by the beach and do all the LA things.
Yeah.
And I remember I first lived in Seattle. LA wasn't realistic just for legal reasons.
Okay.
And so I moved to Seattle first, and Seattle has a smaller city vibe.
Yeah.
And then I finally was able to move to LA. And I remember feeling so overwhelmed. That was probably one of the scariest places I've ever lived by myself because it was so isolating.
Yeah.
There was, if you didn't know anyone or know of someone, you absolutely could not find anything there. And I'd never felt so isolated, but also as if just nothing was within my reach.
Yeah, it's really a sprawl, and you have to make a lot of. I lived there for a long time too, and so you have to intentionally meet people places. You don't bump into people places.
You don't bump into people. There's no natural way of really finding a tribe there, because my go-to is usually to try and replicate something that I would do at home. So I would go to the gym. Yeah. So I joined a gym. I joined CrossFit. I would go to the restaurants or the bars and I'd go and eat by myself because that's a natural way to meet people and have conversations. Or like usually bartenders are just super helpful and resourceful anyways if you have questions. Or I would try to do something that felt normal for me, like go to the movies. Yeah. But then that would be it. And so I'd have to work on those little pockets of social circles to help me to meet people or help me to navigate around a city and really orient myself to my new space. Yeah. But LA, I just could not find that. It was such a scary place.
Some people, I think some places, because of how much of a sprawl they are, it's harder. And in some cities, there's a little bit more of sort of groups and things that you can tap into to find some of this information. But I think also even just the idea that you're new to a place, so now you're trying to figure that out. And then every relationship that you have is new. Yeah. So even that concept that I was talking about before of like co-parenting kind of in one space with your kids implies that you are closer with people. It implies that you've invited everyone over to your house and you can do that casually, right? Which is like so many steps away from being like, I'm in a new city and not only do I not know where I'm going or how to get what I want, I also don't have like the people to do that with. And where are they?
Yeah. You almost feel like you can't naturally get through things or learn things because you just don't have the accessibility to be able to do so. So you're kind of like, I remember just feeling stuck in a loop of just doing the same thing over and over again because I didn't know how to do anything else. Yeah. I couldn't learn how to do anything else.
It's hard. It's really hard to make these adjustments and to adapt to these new places and to figure it out and to build support for yourself, and it sounds like Berlin was easier to do that. For you, for sure, than LA at least.
Because I had some resources.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is it. I think that there's this combination of how do we build what feels okay for us socially? How do we know that that's going to take some time, right? But then also actually tapping into the resources that we can find as much as possible while we're building what that looks like, I mean, for me, I didn't have friends here. And so that had to be built and I didn't have the resources really either. And so there was a lot of searching for things instead of just you're with people who are just sharing information. So you're just getting it. You're just getting the resources without being like, okay, I should research this and this and this. And it's like an added to-do list. Instead, it's just something that happens, and it sounds like you built that out with your partner's friends by kind of building those resources, right? And then building the friendships after.
There was still the searching. So it didn't come naturally because I wasn't hanging out with them, right? So they weren't able to just like now when I'm with my friends, I hear things, or like if we hang out and you'll be like, oh, I like those earrings. Where did you get?
Yeah, exactly.
Or I could just be like, oh yeah, I was shopping the other day and I went to this place and I got this, and you're like, oh, I've been thinking about that as well.
Exactly.
So it was still searching, but when I couldn't find it myself, I at least had people that I could potentially ask that may know because they were more familiar with the area, more so than me.
It helps. It helps to have at least a place where you can go if you can't find it otherwise, can't find the resources otherwise. But it does take some time to build relationships that get close enough for you to feel that way. Like I just the other day had, it was myself and my husband and the 2 kids, and then 2 other sets of parents, and then all the kids were playing. And even one of the fathers was like, this is when I feel the most relief. Like we all get to chat and talk about things, and the kids are playing, and there's just something that's so casual about it. And to me, it's casual in a way that feels American. Like it's no one's, setting things up to look a particular way. I mean, you pick up a little bit before people come over, but it's not like, it's not formal at all. Everyone's just sort of sitting on the couch having a chat, and the kids are playing a little bit. And that implies that there's either a relationship that is stronger, or that at least you've known someone long enough to feel like you can do that.
Yeah. You're kind of, I think when you're able to have those connections as well, it's almost as if you get answers to things that you didn't really ask for.
100%. It's like, it just comes and you don't even have to ask. It just sort of is a part of the conversation. Yeah. And the ease of that is so supportive. It's so supportive to be in a space where you just get some of the things that you need without asking, without researching, without, taking all those steps that you might take. Particularly, we've talked so much about how you just have more to manage, when you're in a new country, and there's so many layers to the things that you're doing, and researching it is more confusing. Every website is in a different language. You're translating things. It's not just go look, it's harder than that. And it just eases all of that, I call it the peer feedback loop, where you're like getting all of this like great information and support from your peer group, but without the effort.
Yeah. I mean, I remember you talking about product recognition in one of our earlier episodes. And I just remember, and I remember going to someone's home, and I had been looking for cornstarch for a long time. Mm-hmm. And every time I would get cornstarch, it would be like corn flour.
Yeah,
not the starch. And someone had cornstarch, and they were reporting it, and I was like, oh my God, that's cornstarch. And and so like immediately, like I saw the box and I was like, this is what it's supposed to say. This is what it's supposed to look like. And that was all I needed to know. Like, I don't have to remember what the name is. Yeah. I don't have to know I just need to remember the brand and the color of the box, and that's it. Now I knew what cornstarch was.
That's amazing. And that is the peer feedback loop, right? It's like you got it. You got it because you were there. It wasn't because of all the research and all the work. It was just came up. It just came up.
Naturally.
By
having access, proximity.
That's right.
Yeah, the village.
That's right. And it takes a while. I mean, I think in one episode you said it took about a year, right? To like a year to adjust, and then a year to feel like you kind of had sort of understood what you had made, and built here, right? I think that it probably took me maybe a little longer than that. But you do get there.
You do.
And it feels sort of overwhelming when all the things that you're trying to do, and the community that you're trying to set up, and learning all the products and the activities and the things that you might be doing with your family or just with your partner, that you're trying to figure all those things out, and every single one of them has a sort of effort around them, because it's all research with things you don't know very well. But it becomes less and less work over time as you build that group of people.
Yeah. It's funny because I see that in real life happening with my clients. And so when we do have sessions, I try to be very intentional about how I provide information to them. Because I remember, even if it didn't happen here in Berlin, I mean, not that I don't still have those experiences or had those experiences, But I know that there were times when I lived by myself in cities and I just didn't know who to ask, where to ask, and like what to ask. So I see it, and I see how overwhelmed it makes my clients. You almost see this like fragility because you're spent. You're doing so many things. You have so many roles, and then this additional demand just feels like so much. You just wish the information could come easier.
That's it. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that even just the idea of making friends and building the village feels intense to do when you're trying to navigate so many other little things that are all sort of tricky to figure out or different to figure out. And it's like, oh my gosh, I don't feel like I have time for this. I don't really have time to make friends. When am I going to do that? You know, and you do. But it is overwhelming.
It is.
And if it feels that way, you know, to anyone, you're definitely not on your own. You know, there are really a lot of people feel the same way in these situations when things are new, and there's so much to figure out, and we haven't created our version of a village someplace else yet.
Yeah, and I mean, when you don't have that village, you really have to be intentional about trying to make that village, right? You want to be able to access information. And it might start off with the online communities. I remember just searching for keywords. I wouldn't ask a question per se. I would just look back to see if anybody had asked anything similar. And so in doing those searches, sometimes other things would come up that maybe I needed, but wasn't really thinking of at the time.
Yeah, Facebook is really helpful for that.
Exactly.
Obviously. In a new city, almost always there's a city group. There's an expat group. There's a mom's group. There's a, you know,
you'll find every type
single
of group.
in blank city group. There's running groups. There's all sorts of things, and you can find it.
So you have to. Yeah, I would definitely start with the online spaces, and like I said, I would try to do something that was familiar but in a social way. So for families, I would say go to the playgrounds and sit by yourself and read a book for hours, and try to sit closer to another mom who's not sitting with anybody else, right? Because then the conversations might just happen naturally.
Might come up.
You know,
you meet people on the playground. You meet people at Kita. So when you have kids, you have that entry point into some possible
use the kids
relationships, right? They need to have play dates. So do you.
Of course.
Yeah.
The Kitas, that's great too, because they usually have the parent groups. The schools have the parent groups.
Yeah, here I'm not sure if that's the same in all different countries, but here for sure they create parent groups via WhatsApp so you are actually connected with the people who are in your kids' Kita.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that does help. And then if you know that your son or daughter plays with so-and-so, you can direct message them and set something up and see if everyone gets on or not.
Yeah.
And that can be a nice way to start.
Yeah.
And knowing the culture, like here in Berlin, there's a huge playground culture. And they're absolutely incredible, hands down, the most creative, most beautiful playgrounds I've ever seen in any country I've ever been in. They are amazing. It is like their imagination come to life, and it is so cool. But it is different. Instead of going from house to house, hanging out with people in their homes, you are often spending time at the playground. And that's a sort of cultural adjustment to make. But it is important to participate and to go and to not be afraid to chat with someone else. It's hard. I think we all get nervous when we're not sure what language someone speaks, or, you know, but you can always try, you know. Actually, a lot of people speak multiple languages, particularly in Europe. So you may get very lucky that they actually share one of the languages that you speak to.
It's true. Similarly, like, go to the restaurants and sit at a bar by yourself or with your partner.
Or a cafe,
you know, if you guys are going on a date, I would definitely engage with the waiters and the bartenders, just to kind of ask them, like, what's around? What can you do?
You can get those resources for sure. Different other restaurants that they would recommend, or
other restaurants,
and even things like, you know, how do you say this thing in German or in whatever language is for the home country that you're in. If you can ask these questions and get answers to some of them when you're out and about as well. We just are afraid to ask, I think, a lot of the time.
That's the thing. Like, the nice thing about the travel community, the expat community, is that we've all been there. And so we're very open and willing to help.
Yeah.
There's never a dumb question. Like, we've all been there before, which is why I say I typically don't ask the questions online, because I just have an inkling that somebody's asked before. So I'll just search it.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, if it's not asked, do not be afraid to ask. There's no dumb questions. Plus, you can be anonymous online. But it's just there comes this ease or this easiness of when you live somewhere and you feel like you're starting to find that rhythm.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times that rhythm comes because things become more automatic and you're not having to think, you're not having to search. Right. The information just comes to you in that natural way, that feedback that you're talking about, that loop of just information's provided because there's accessibility, because you're being exposed to things, because you're being intentional about being in certain situations where you can be exposed to things.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel quite as hard.
Yeah, it really changes. I mean, I think the level of overwhelm at the start, that changes too. And as that goes down, your like access to all the things that are around you increases too, because we're just trying to figure out so much at first. And so that gets better as well. And you do build that community over time, and you get to a place where you can do a little bit of that co-parenting in one space with friends and have some of that ease in getting information. We just have to be patient with ourselves and also to reach out. And even, these groups are great online, but also if there's someone that you can ask a question to, sometimes that begins a whole relationship with someone just by virtue of you asking the question. And so, sometimes we can be afraid to ask, but when we do, sometimes there can be some really great outcomes from asking those questions of other people.
Ask your care providers. I mean, my clients ask me questions all the time.
Oh, for sure.
And I'll try to bring them together.
Yeah, absolutely. And for doctors, for cafes, for places for the kids, it's all sorts of things.
It's a place to start.
Yeah.
If you feel like you absolutely don't have access to anybody, you can at least start there.
Yeah.
Ask the teachers questions. People can be nice. Of course, we'll have people that don't quite understand why you're approaching them with things like this, but they're few and far in between.
Yeah, I think people really want to help and support each other, and there are bigger expat communities than we think. Like in our mind, I think it feels smaller than it is. There are a lot of people, and they're willing to help you and get you started. And even just knowing that it changes, knowing that it grows, knowing that it gets better helps a lot. It doesn't stay as hard as it is at the start.
Being the person to be able to provide the advice after having been there the year before.
That's right.
Feels very, very grounding.
Yeah, that's it. And so if all those people feel that way about helping you, and I think that, we're certainly both in that position. Yeah. And when you are asking those questions, it also gives someone else an opportunity to be like, oh gosh, I actually know the answer to that. And then they feel their own progress too while they're helping you. Yeah. And that's a really wonderful thing.
Yeah. So don't be afraid. Even if you're in a new country, you don't understand the language, there are definitely ways to navigate. I would say once you start being intentional about finding the village, which was a huge thing for me, because I think this is also the first time that I've had the mindset that I'm going to be here permanently. Yeah. And so I try to make the friends a lot quicker than I did in other places that I've lived. Right?
Yeah. And sometimes if we know we're only going to be in a place for 2 years, or we only know, that we're only going to be there for a year or 18 months or something, we might have different motivations or have different challenges adjusting to a new place. But you don't regret building relationships.
No,
you don't regret them. It's really supportive, whether you're someplace for 18 months or you're someplace for 4 years. It makes the time better and richer. And so, I know that some people have sort of reservations around building relationships if they know they're going to leave, but not every relationship has to be a best friend that you're going to know forever. And though you might actually, some of these relationships may last quite a long time, but even just to reach out so that you have someone that you're connecting to, someone is helping you, you never know what that will become. And even if you're not there for that long, it can still be really helpful for both parties to have that relationship.
I think building a village is not just important for you, but for your family as well. It can really make or break really
that's it.
your
And
experience.
For the kids too, we are thermometers for them, and so when we are finding some ways to make our experience better, they get the benefit from that.
Yeah.
And so if you are lonely, or if you feel like, gosh, my friend group is really missing, or I just don't know how to do certain things, when we can reflect a little bit on like, okay, so what are those things? What are the things that I really need the most?
Yeah.
And then start to seek them out. We, of course, benefit ourselves, but also our whole family benefits from feeling like we're more grounded in the place where we've moved.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. These are good. Okay. So takeaways, right? That it's okay if you're feeling a little bit more isolated or a little bit more overwhelmed, that sensation is going to change over time.
It's part of the process.
It's part of that early process. Ask questions, right? Lots of them, or research the answers if you're not ready to ask the question yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's really about being intentional about building a village. No man can survive on their own. So we want to be able to build a community. Things will feel easier and less overwhelming when you're not having to use the brain power to navigate in every way.
Yeah.
Right? When you do have access and proximity, it allows you to get things more automatically without having to use that power, that brain power.
Yeah. And each step that you take, like the level of overwhelm comes down because you're integrating yourself, you're building the resources, you're building the connections, and however long you're going to be in a place, that's really valuable and really important.
And we didn't say this, but checking in with people back home. Sometimes you're so busy trying to, it's almost like you're flying over your life. You're having this outer body experience. And sometimes you just need someone familiar to bring you back down, because they might be able to ask you questions or give you ideas of things that you might not have thought of. Even though you're in a different country, in a new country, way of life is still typically the same. And so like just being able to take care of yourself, checking in with certain things, there are similarities. And so checking in with friends and family and having conversations and letting people know how hard it is. Sometimes they might just have ideas that can potentially work in a new environment as well.
Yeah, it's really grounding to have those connection points. I definitely had some friends that helped me a lot and set up those check-in calls, and it really helped me, particularly in those early years here. Yeah. Okay, so we slowly build our villages.
Slowly build your village, and it will get easier.
It gets easier over time.
Yeah. All right, but as always, guys, please, please, please comment below. What are some of your fears if you haven't traveled yet? And what is a burning question that you've needed help or support with? Or what's something encouraging that you can tell someone who might be about to embark on this journey of moving abroad? And we'll answer it together as a community. Check us out on all of our social media platforms. Follow, like, subscribe, and please share and tell the parents about us. But until next time, thanks for tuning in.
We'll see you soon.